Tejo stood at the massive window of the Galactic Council station and watched 1,000 different ships float in the darkness of space. Each ship looked different because they came from different alien worlds. Some ships looked like giant flowers, made of metal. Others looked like swimming fish, with lights all over them. A few ships looked like floating rocks with engines stuck on them. The human ambassador adjusted his dark blue uniform and walked toward the main meeting hall. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. Most aliens were already inside the meeting room because they were scared. Something big was happening today, and everyone knew it. The great doors opened, and Tejo stepped into the largest room he had ever seen. The ceiling went up so high he could not see the top. Thousands of different alien beings sat in floating chairs or stood on special platforms. Some aliens looked like walking trees with eyes. Others looked like giant bugs with too many arms. A few looked almost human, but had skin that changed colors. At the front of the room, a huge hologram screen showed pictures that made Tejo feel cold inside. The pictures showed dead planets with no life left on them. Cities that were once full of people now had only broken buildings and empty streets. Some planets looked like they had been eaten from the inside out. Chancellor Vorthak stepped forward to speak. He was tall like a building and made of crystal that sparkled in the light. When he moved, his crystal body made sounds like breaking glass. His voice was deep and scary when he talked to the crowd. "The shadow wolves are coming again," Chancellor Vorthak said, and his words made every alien in the room become quiet. The last time we saw them was 50 years ago. They destroyed 3 entire star systems before they disappeared back into deep space. Now our scouts have found them moving toward human space. Tejo felt hundreds of alien eyes turn to look at him. Some aliens made worried sounds, others whispered to each other in languages he could not understand. A few aliens near him moved their chairs away, like being human might be dangerous. The hologram screen changed to show new pictures. These pictures showed creatures that looked like the worst nightmare anyone could imagine. They were as big as earth elephants, but their bodies were covered in black fur that seemed to eat light. Their eyes glowed red like fire, and their teeth were as long as swords. Each creature had claws that could cut through steel like paper. But what made these creatures truly terrifying was not how they looked. The shadow wolves were smart, very smart. They could plan attacks and work together like a team. They could also get inside the minds of other creatures and fill them with so much fear that their victims would go crazy before they died. Ambassador Zelnith from the water planet Aquatica floated forward in her water-filled suit. Half of her blue-scaled face was covered in scars. She spoke in a voice that shook with old memories. "My people thought we were safe because we lived underwater," she said. "The shadow wolves learned to hunt in our oceans. They killed millions of my people before we could escape to other worlds. They are not just hunters. They are destroyers of hope. Representative Crix from the insect world." Hive 9 clicked his 4 arms together nervously. His bug-like head turned from side to side as he spoke. "They came to our world like death itself," he said. "We tried to fight them with our best soldiers and weapons. Nothing worked. They were too fast, too smart, too strong. When they left, our planet had no life on it at all." More aliens shared their stories. Each story was worse than the last. The shadow wolves had attacked worlds for thousands of years. No one had ever beaten them. The best anyone could do was run away and hope the wolves would not follow. Chancellor Vorthak raised his crystal hand for silence. He looked directly at Tejo and spoke, in a voice that sounded almost sad. "Ambassador Tejo, your human worlds are directly in their path. Our computers show the shadow wolves will reach human space in less than 30 days. We are here to discuss evacuation plans for your people. There are empty worlds far from here, where humans could be safe." The room became so quiet that Tejo could hear his own heart beating. He stood up slowly and looked around at all the scared alien faces. These beings had traveled across the galaxy to warn humanity about danger. That meant something to him. "Thank you for the warning," Tejo said in a calm voice that surprised everyone in the room. Most species would be screaming or crying or begging for help right now. But the human ambassador sounded like someone had just told him it might rain tomorrow. Chancellor Vorthak leaned forward, his crystal body making more sounds. "Do you understand what I told you? These creatures have destroyed civilizations that were millions of years old. They have weapons and abilities that can tear apart entire fleets of warships. Your species is young and has no experience fighting enemies like this." Tejo nodded his head. "I understand," he said. "We appreciate your concern and your offer to help us evacuate. But humanity will not be leaving our worlds." The room exploded with noise. Aliens made sounds of shock and surprise. Some stood up and waved their arms or tentacles or whatever they had. Others made clicking or whistling sounds that meant they thought humans were crazy. "Why would you stay?" demanded Ambassador Yith-Ara from the desert world. Sandros. Her voice sounded like wind blowing through rocks. "No species has ever survived a shadow wolf invasion. They will kill every human they find, because running away is not who we are." Tejo replied simply, "We need all the information you have about these shadow wolves, how they hunt, where they live, what they eat, how they communicate, everything you can share with us, Chancellor." Vorthak stared at the human. "Ambassador," for a long moment, the crystal being had seen thousands of species react to news of shadow wolf attacks. They always chose to flee or fight. Both choices usually ended the same way, with dead planets and empty space. "You want information to plan your defense," he said finally. "Not exactly," Tejo said with something that might have been a small smile. "We want to understand them." The meeting continued for several more hours. Aliens shared every bit of information they had about shadow wolves. Most of it was about how dangerous and deadly they were. Some aliens had studied shadow wolf behavior from a distance. They knew the creatures traveled in packs and seemed to have leaders. They knew shadow wolves were very protective of their young. They knew the creatures could live in space without ships. As the meeting ended, Tejo collected all the data the aliens had given him: video recordings, scientific studies, battle reports, and witness statements. He thanked each alien representative. Personally, even the ones who called humans foolish for not running away. Ambassador Zelnith floated up to him as he prepared to leave. "I hope you change your minds about evacuation," she said softly. "These creatures are not like anything in your experience." Tejo looked at her scarred face and nodded respectfully. "Maybe not," he said. "But every creature is like something in someone's experience." He walked back through the empty corridors to his ship. As he prepared to return to Earth, he sent a message ahead. The message was short and simple, but it would change everything. Data received, he transmitted, "Begin Phase 1, back on Earth." People who got that message were not soldiers or weapons experts. They were veterinarians and animal trainers, wildlife experts, and dog breeders. People who spent their lives understanding creatures that others feared, because humans had learned something over thousands of years of evolution, something that made them different from every other species in the galaxy sometimes. The most dangerous predator could become the most loyal friend if you just knew how to speak their language. Dr. Jinne sat in her laboratory in Seoul and watched the holographic display showing shadow wolf attack patterns. The videos from the Galactic Council played over and over again on her screens. Each time she watched them, she saw something new, something that other species had missed. Her team gathered around the main table in the research center. There was Dr. Dong Min, who had trained military dogs for 20 years. There was Professor So Young, who studied animal behavior, and Dr. Kyung Soo, who was the best animal doctor in Asia. Behind them stood 15 more experts in animal training, wildlife management, and creature psychology. "Look at this part," Jinne said. pointing to a video of shadow wolves attacking a space station. See how the leader stays back while the others attack. He is not just commanding them, he is protecting them, like a father protects his children. Dongmin leaned forward and watched the video again. "You are right," he said. "I have seen this behavior in wolf packs on Earth. The alpha male does not always lead the charge. He makes sure his pack is safe first. These creatures care about each other." The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Most species saw the shadow wolves as mindless killing machines. But humans were seeing something different. They were seeing a family. So Young pulled up another video. This one showed shadow wolves after a successful hunt. Instead of eating everything themselves, they brought food back to injured pack members and fed the young ones first. "They have social bonds," she said excitedly. "They take care of their weak and sick. This is not the behavior of simple predators. This is the behavior of intelligent social creatures. Outside their laboratory, the world was preparing for the shadow wolf arrival. But Earth was not building weapons or evacuation ships. Instead, they were building something that would have seemed crazy to any other species. Factories that usually made military equipment were now producing giant food dispensers, strong enough to feed creatures the size of elephants. Other factories made enormous toys and climbing structures designed for massive predators. The government had ordered millions of tons of synthetic meat that would provide perfect nutrition for carnivorous aliens. At the Global Animal Training Center in Kenya, the best animal trainers from every continent were learning new techniques. Trainers who worked with lions and tigers were studying videos of shadow wolf body. Language dog trainers were learning how to communicate with creatures that were 10 times larger than any animal they had ever worked with. The most surprising part of Earth preparation was who was in charge. It was not generals or soldiers leading the effort. It was Dr. Minjun, who used to run the largest zoo in the world. It was trainer Unji, who could make friends with the most aggressive rescue dogs. It was veterinarian Hae Jin, who had saved thousands of wild animals. President Yu Jin called a meeting with all the world leaders. Everyone expected to hear about military plans and defense strategies. Instead, they heard something that made them think humans had lost their minds. "We are not going to fight the shadow wolves," President Yu Jin announced to the shocked leaders. "We are not going to run away from them either. We are going to try something that has never been attempted before in the history of the galaxy. We are going to tame them." The room exploded with arguments and protests. World leaders shouted that this was impossible, that humans would all die, that the plan was completely insane. But President Yu Jin held up her hand for silence. "Think about it," she said. "Every species that has met shadow wolves has either run away or tried to kill them. No one has ever tried to understand them. No one has ever offered them what they might actually want or need." Prime Minister Chen from Europe stood up and pointed at the holographic display. "Those things have destroyed entire civilizations," he said. "They are not pets, they are monsters." "President," Eugen smiled calmly. "That is exactly what people said about wolves thousands of years ago," she replied. "And look what happened when humans decided to make friends with them instead of just fearing them. We got dogs." The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the world leaders agreed to try Earth's strange plan. They had seen the videos of destroyed planets. They knew that fighting had never worked for anyone. Maybe it was time to try something completely different. While politicians argued, the real work was happening in training centers around the world. Animal behaviorist Wu Jin was developing new communication techniques based on shadow wolf vocalizations. He discovered that the creatures used subsonic sounds that humans could not normally hear but could learn to understand with the right equipment. Dr. Su Min was working on translation programs that could turn human speech into shadow wolf communication patterns. Her computers analyzed thousands of hours of shadow wolf recordings, looking for patterns in their sounds and movements. The breakthrough came when Jin-A realized something important about Shadow Wolf psychology. The creatures were not just hunting for food. They were searching for something much more important. They were looking for acceptance. Every species they had encountered either ran away in terror or attacked them with weapons. No one had ever tried to welcome them or offer them friendship. The Shadow Wolves were the loneliest creatures in the galaxy, and their loneliness had turned into rage. News of Earth's plan spread to their alien allies and trading partners. The reactions were not positive. The Vorthak Chancellor sent an urgent message, calling humans insane. The Aquatic Federation offered to evacuate all human children to their underwater cities. The insect worlds of Hive 9 simply refused to believe that humans were serious. But some aliens were curious. A few scientists from peaceful species asked if they could observe Earth preparations. They wanted to see what humans thought they could accomplish. The Galactic Council set up monitoring stations to watch what would surely be the end of human civilization. As the days passed, Shadow Wolf scouts were detected entering human space. Long-range sensors showed small groups of the creatures moving through the outer planets of human systems. They were not attacking yet. They seemed to be studying human settlements and trying to understand what kind of prey they were dealing with. Dr. Jin-A received reports from observation posts throughout human space. The Shadow Wolves were behaving strangely. Instead of immediately attacking human outposts, they were watching them from a distance. Some scouts had been observed for hours, just sitting and staring at human activities. "This is perfect," Jin-A told her team. "They are curious about us. That curiosity is the first step toward communication. When a predator stops seeing you as prey and starts seeing you as something interesting, that is when real contact becomes possible." The final preparations were completed just in time. Specially trained teams were positioned at key locations throughout human space. Each team included animal trainers, veterinarians, and communication specialists. They had equipment designed specifically for Shadow Wolf contact and enough synthetic meat to feed a pack for months. On the last day before the main Shadow Wolf force was expected to arrive, President Yu Jin made one final announcement to the world and to their alien allies. "Today, we try something new," she said. "We choose hope over fear. We choose understanding over violence. We choose to believe that even the galaxy most feared, Predator might just need a friend." The alien observers thought humans had chosen suicide, but as the first Shadow Wolf pack ships appeared on the edge of human space, something unprecedented was about to happen. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the best way to deal with a monster was to find out what it really wanted, and what Shadow Wolves wanted was something humans had been giving to wild creatures for thousands of years, a chance to belong somewhere safe. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of his ship and watched three massive shadows move toward them through space. The research vessel. Friendship had been specially built for this moment. The walls were made extra strong. The cargo bay was filled with food instead of weapons, and every crew member had trained for months to prepare for this day. The Shadow Wolves did not come in ships. They traveled through space, using their own bodies, somehow moving faster than most spacecraft. Each creature was bigger than an Earth elephant. Their black fur seemed to swallow light itself, and their red eyes glowed like burning stars. As they got closer, Minho could see their claws were longer than swords and sharp enough to cut through metal. Dr. Jin-A stood beside the captain, watching her instruments carefully. The readings showed that the Shadow Wolves were using some kind of psychic energy to move through space. They were also projecting waves of fear so strong that most creatures would go insane just being near them. Animal trainer Dongmin checked his equipment one more time. He had speakers ready to play sounds that might calm the creatures. He had food prepared the way carnivorous animals liked it best. He had medical supplies in case any of the wolves were hurt. Most importantly, he had trained himself to stay calm, no matter how scared he felt. The three shadow wolves phased through the ship hull like ghosts passing through walls. Suddenly, they were standing in the cargo bay, towering over the humans. Their presence filled the room with terror so thick it was hard to breathe. Their psychic fear projection hit the crew like a physical blow, making their hearts race and their hands shake. Behaviorist So Young felt her knees go weak from the fear, but she had practiced for this. She closed her eyes and used the meditation techniques they had learned. She thought about calm forests and peaceful streams. Instead of running or screaming, she activated the sound system, the cargo bay filled with gentle music mixed with recordings of earth wolves howling. The sounds were designed to be soothing to pack animals. The shadow wolves stopped moving and tilted their massive heads, listening to something they had never heard. Before Dongmin did something that went against every survival instinct in his body. He sat down on the floor. He avoided looking directly at the shadow wolves, because direct eye contact meant challenge in animal language. Instead, he spoke in the calmest voice he could manage. "We are not here to hurt you," he said softly. "We want to help you. We have food if you are hungry. We have medicine if you are injured. We want to be your friends." The lead shadow wolf was clearly the pack alpha. It stood in front of the other two and studied the humans with intelligence that was both fascinating and terrifying. This creature was smart enough to plan complex attacks and patient enough to study its prey before striking. But something was different about how it looked at them. Ginny noticed that one of the smaller wolves was limping slightly. Its left rear paw was not touching the ground properly. The creature was injured, but trying to hide it from the others. She reached into her medical kit, very slowly, and pulled out supplies designed for large animal first aid. The alpha wolf snarled when Ginny moved, but she did not stop or run away. Instead, she held up the medical supplies where all three wolves could see them. She pointed to the injured wolf and then to the supplies. Her message was clear. She wanted to help. So Young had an idea. She reached into the food container and pulled out a piece of synthetic meat that had been specially formulated for shadow wolf nutrition. It smelled like the best hunting kill and contained all the vitamins and minerals these creatures needed. She rolled the meat toward the alpha wolf slowly and carefully. The alpha sniffed the offering. Its psychic projections lessened slightly as curiosity replaced pure aggression. The meat smelled good, better than anything the wolves had found during their long journey through space. When the alpha tasted it, the flavor was perfect, rich and satisfying in a way that space hunting rarely provided. That was the moment everything changed. The alpha wolf posture shifted from pure predator to something more complex. It was still dangerous, still ready to attack if threatened, but now it was also interested. These strange, small creatures had offered food and medical care instead of weapons and fear. Ginny moved toward the injured wolf even more slowly. The other wolves watched every step, ready to attack if she threatened their pack member. But when she reached the injured wolf, she knelt down and began examining the injured paw with gentle hands. The injured wolf whimpered softly when Ginny touched the swollen area. She could feel that the paw had an infection that was making the creature sick. She cleaned the wound carefully and applied antibiotic medicine that would help it heal. The wolf stood very still during the treatment, as if it understood she was trying to help. For several long minutes, the cargo bay was silent except for the gentle music and the sounds of Ginny working on the injured paw. The other crew members watched in amazement as one of the galaxy's most feared predators allowed a human to provide medical care. This had never happened before in recorded history. When Ginny finished treating the paw, she stepped back and waited. The injured wolf put its paw down and found that it felt much better. The pain was already starting to go away. The alpha wolf watched this entire process with growing interest. Dong Min offered more food to all three wolves. This time they ate willingly. They had been traveling through space for weeks, and good food was hard to find. The synthetic meat provided better nutrition than anything they had eaten in months. As they ate, their psychic projections of fear continued to weaken. The breakthrough moment came when So Young activated a holographic display showing images of Earth wolves playing and caring for each other. The shadow. Wolves watched these images with intense interest. They saw creatures that looked somewhat like themselves, living in harmony with other beings, working together and taking care of their pack. The alpha wolf made a sound that was part growl and part something else. The translation computer analyzed the sound and displayed a message on Jin Ai tablet. The wolf had said something like, "Curious and want to know more." Captain Minho stepped forward carefully. He had been trained in first contact protocols, but nothing in his training covered making friends with apex predators. He spoke directly. "To the alpha wolf, we are called humans," he said. "We live on many worlds in this area of space. We want to learn about your people and share our knowledge with you. We think your pack and our people could help each other." The alpha wolf considered this. For a long time, its red eyes studied each human carefully. These creatures were small and weak-looking, but they had done something remarkable. They had offered food, healing, and kindness without asking for anything in return. This was behavior the wolves had never encountered before. Finally, the alpha made its decision. It approached Captain Minho and did something that shocked everyone present. The massive predator lowered its head slightly in what looked like a gesture of respect. Then, it made a sound that the translation computer interpreted as agreement and friendship. The three shadow wolves spent another hour in the cargo bay, eating the special food and allowing the humans to examine their injuries and general health. When they finally left, they did not attack the ship or threaten the crew. Instead, they marked the hull with their scent, but not as prey territory. The scent marking meant something entirely different in shadow wolf culture. It meant these humans belonged to their pack now. They were under the protection of the wolves. As word of this spread through shadow wolf communication networks, it would change everything. Captain Minho sent an urgent message back to Earth using the special emergency channel, First Contact. Successful. He transmitted, "The impossible has happened. They want to be friends." Across the galaxy, monitoring stations detected the message. Alien observers could not believe what they were hearing. The humans had not just survived contact. With shadow wolves, they had made peace with them. The galaxy's most feared predator had accepted humans as pack members. This was only the beginning. News of the first peaceful contact with shadow wolves spread across the galaxy faster than any message in history. The Galactic Council emergency session was called within hours of receiving Captain Minho report alien species that had hidden from shadow wolves for centuries could not believe what they were hearing. Dr. Hai Jin was already on her way to establish the first permanent research station when the galaxy started paying attention. Her transport ship carried enough supplies to build a base that could house both humans and shadow wolves. The location was an asteroid field where long-range sensors had detected multiple wolf packs gathering. The construction crew worked day and night to build what they called Harmony Base. The station had large open spaces where shadow wolves could move around comfortably, special food preparation areas where synthetic meat could be made fresh every day, and most importantly, medical facilities designed to treat creatures much larger than any Earth animal. Ambassador Tejo received hundreds of messages from alien governments. Some called humans crazy for trying to live near shadow wolves. Others demanded to know what secret weapons humans were using to control the predators. A few alien scientists asked permission to observe from a safe distance. The real breakthrough came 3 weeks after Harmony Base was established. A young shadow wolf appeared at the station boundary badly injured and separated from its pack. The Juvenile was barely half-grown but still larger than an earth horse. It had deep cuts on its side and was limping badly from an infected wound. Veterinarian. Kyung-soo had never worked on anything like a shadow wolf, but he had treated every kind of earth predator, from tigers to bears. The young wolf collapsed near the station entrance, too weak to be dangerous, but still radiating waves of fear and pain. Animal trainer Yoonji approached the injured juvenile very slowly. She could feel its terror and confusion through its psychic projections. The young wolf had never been alone before. Shadow wolves were pack creatures that depended on each other for everything. Being separated from family was almost worse than being injured. "We will help you," Yoonji said softly. Even though she knew the wolf could not understand human words yet, she sat down near the injured creature and began speaking in calm, soothing tones, the way she would talk to a frightened rescue animal. Kyung-soo prepared emergency surgery while Yoonji kept the young wolf calm. The injuries were serious and would require several hours of careful work. The wolf would need to trust them completely to allow such invasive medical treatment. The surgery took 6 hours. Kyung-soo worked carefully to repair damaged organs and clean infected wounds, while Yoonji stayed with the wolf the entire time, talking softly and providing comfort. The young shadow wolf seemed to understand that these strange creatures were trying to help it. During recovery, the juvenile wolf that the humans nicknamed Hope began forming the first documented bond between a human and shadow wolf. Yoonji spent every day with Hope, bringing food, helping with physical therapy, and simply being present when the young wolf felt scared or lonely. Hope recovery gave the human team their first real opportunity to study shadow wolf communication up close. Linguist Woo Jin discovered that the wolves used a complex combination of sounds, body language, and psychic impulses to talk with each other. The psychic part was especially interesting because it allowed them to share emotions and images directly. The translation breakthrough came when Hope tried to tell Yoonji about its family. The young wolf projected images directly into her mind, showing her what its pack looked like, where they had been traveling, and how Hope had gotten separated during an attack by space pirates. Woo Jin worked with Hope and Yoonji to develop the first human shadow wolf dictionary. Hope would think about something and project the image while making specific sounds. Woo Jin would record everything and slowly build understanding of what different sounds and psychic patterns meant. The most important discovery was what shadow wolves called themselves in their own language. They did not think of themselves as shadow wolves at all. That was just what other species called them, because they were afraid. In their own minds, they were the lonely ones, always searching for something they could never find. Hope explained through images and emotions that shadow wolves had been looking for, true pack for thousands of years. They had visited world after world, trying to find other intelligent creatures who would accept them as family, but every species they met either ran away or tried to kill them. Their aggressive behavior was not really about hunting for food. It was about frustration and sadness. They were lonely creatures who had given up hope of ever finding acceptance. The attacks on other species were expressions of their pain at being rejected over and over again. Dr. Jinne realized this explained everything about shadow wolf behavior. They were not mindless predators. They were intelligent, social creatures driven to aggression by isolation. When humans offered friendship instead of fear or violence, the wolves had finally found what they had been searching for. More shadow wolf packs began visiting Harmony Base, drawn by news that spread. Through their psychic communication network, Hope had shared images of kind treatment, good food, and medical care with other wolves. The concept of willing cooperation with another species was revolutionary for them. The human teams developed new protocols for welcoming wolf visitors. Each pack that arrived was offered food, medical examinations, and safe places to rest. Most importantly, they were offered something no other species had ever given them: respect as intelligent beings with their Bone culture and needs trainer Dongmin established the first formal training programs where humans learned shadow wolf communication methods while wolves learned to moderate their psychic abilities around their new human packmates. The training was challenging because it required both species to overcome millions of years of evolutionary programming. The first successful human-wolf bonded pairs formed during this time. Yunji and Hope became so closely connected that they could communicate. Almost telepathically, Hope learned to control its fear projections, while Yunji learned to receive and interpret psychic images. Other successful bonds followed. Dr. So Young partnered with an adult female wolf named Starwalker. Captain Min Ho formed a friendship with the alpha from the first contact who chose the human name Stormbringer. Each partnership was unique, but all shared the same foundation of mutual respect and genuine affection. However, not all shadow wolves accepted this new relationship. With humans, a faction led by an ancient alpha called Void Fang believed that cooperation with other species was weakness and betrayal of wolf nature. Void Fang had lived for centuries and had seen his people rejected by every species they encountered. The militant wolves began hunting packs that associated with humans. They saw the bonding process as corruption that would destroy what made shadow wolves strong and feared. Void Fang gathered followers who shared his belief that wolves should remain isolated and aggressive. The conflict came to a head when Hope Original Pack finally tracked the young wolf to Harmony Base. The family pack had been searching for months and was overjoyed to find Hope alive and healthy, but Void Fang hunters had followed them, hoping to punish any wolves who showed friendship toward humans. Sensors detected the approaching conflict hours before it arrived. Hope Original Family consisted of 12 wolves, including Hope parents and siblings. Void Fang brought 20 of the largest, most aggressive shadow wolves in the galaxy. Each of his followers believed that humans were a threat to their species' survival. Dr. Hyejin sent urgent messages to Earth and to the Galactic Council requesting help, but everyone knew that no outside force could arrive in time. The confrontation would have to be resolved by the humans and wolves at Harmony Base working together. Hope pressed close to Yunji and projected images of the coming danger. The young wolf was terrified, not of the fight itself, but of the possibility that its two families might destroy each other. Hope had found happiness with both humans and wolves, and could not bear to lose either. As the hostile forces approached Harmony Base, the bonded human wolf pairs prepared for something that had never happened before in galactic history. They would have to prove that cooperation between species was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. The future of human-shadow wolf relations would be decided in the next few hours. Void Fang arrived at Harmony Base like a storm made of darkness and rage. The ancient shadow wolf was larger than any of his species that humans had seen before. His black fur seemed to absorb light completely, and his red eyes burned with centuries of anger and loneliness. Behind him came 20 of the most aggressive wolves in the galaxy, each one chosen for their hatred of other species. Hope pressed against Yunji and projected images of terror and sadness. The young wolf could sense the approaching violence and desperately wanted to prevent its two families from fighting each other. The bonded human-wolf pairs at the station felt the psychic waves of aggression coming from Void Fang Pack like a physical assault. Dr. Hyejin activated the station defense protocols, but these were not weapons or shields. Instead, the protocols involved releasing calming pheromones into the air and playing the special music that had worked during first contact. The humans were not preparing for war. They were preparing for the largest group therapy session in galactic history. Stormbringer, the alpha wolf, bonded with Captain Minho, stepped forward to meet the approaching threat. He was smaller than Void Fang, but his confidence came from something the ancient wolf had never experienced. The knowledge that he was not alone, that he had pack mates who would stand with him no matter what happened. The confrontation began with a psychic battle that could be felt across the entire asteroid. Field Void. Fang projected waves of pure aggression and dominance, trying to force the station wolves to submit through fear. His followers added their own psychic voices, creating a chorus of rage that would have driven most creatures insane, but Hope and the other bonded wolves responded with something completely different. Instead of fear, they projected images of acceptance, belonging, and genuine love. The psychic clash was not between aggression and submission, but between loneliness and connection. Between isolation and family. Yunji felt the psychic battle through her bond with Hope and realized that this was not really about humans at all. This was about shadow wolves fighting over what their species should become. Void Fang represented the old way of eternal loneliness and rejection, while the bonded wolves represented the possibility of finally finding home. The turning point came when Void Fang himself approached the station entrance. He expected to find cowering humans and corrupted wolves ready to beg for mercy. Instead, he found something that challenged everything he believed about the universe. Hope stepped forward to meet the ancient Alpha and did something that shocked everyone present. The young wolf did not show fear or aggression. Instead, Hope projected pure love and acceptance directly into Void Fang's mind. The image was so strong and clear that the ancient wolf staggered backward through Hope's psychic projection. Void Fang experienced something he had not felt in centuries, the memory of what it was like to be cared for, to be valued, not for strength or fear, but simply for existing. The feeling was so overwhelming that his aggressive projections faltered. Yunji walked up beside Hope and looked directly into Void Fang's burning red eyes. She was terrified, but she forced herself to speak calmly and clearly. "You are not a monster," she said. "You are just lonely. We understand loneliness. We want to help you feel like you belong somewhere." Void Fang snarled and raised his massive claws, ready to kill this tiny creature that dared to speak to him. But when he looked into Eunji's eyes, he saw something that broke through centuries of defensive anger. He saw genuine concern, not for her own safety, but for his pain. The ancient wolf had spent lifetimes being feared and hated by every species he encountered, but this small human was looking at him with compassion. She could see past his terrifying appearance to the lonely creature underneath Void Fang. Had never experienced anything like this in his very long life. Stormbringer approached slowly and added his own psychic voice to Hope's message. He projected images of what life had been like since bonding with humans. Regular meals, safe places to sleep, medical care when needed, and most importantly, the feeling of being valued and respected. The other bonded wolves joined in, each sharing their own experiences through psychic projection. Soon, the air around Harmony Base was filled with images of cooperation, healing, friendship, and joy. These were emotions that most shadow wolves had never experienced, but had always desperately wanted. Void Fang followers began to waver as they received these psychic messages. Several of the younger wolves in his pack started to understand what they were really seeing. This was not corruption or weakness. This was everything their species had been searching for across the galaxy. The ancient Alpha felt his worldview crumbling around him for centuries. He had believed that shadow wolves were meant to be alone, that other species would never accept them, that strength came only from fear and isolation, but the evidence in front of him proved all of those beliefs wrong. Hope's original family arrived. During the middle of this psychic conversation, the 12 wolves had been traveling for months to find their lost child. When they saw Hope healthy and happy surrounded by both wolves and humans, they felt overwhelming relief and joy. Hope's parents approached Yunji, carefully studying the small human who had cared for their child. They could sense through psychic contact that this creature genuinely loved Hope and had risked everything to help a young wolf heal. The gratitude they felt was beyond anything words could express. Dr. Min-jun arrived with reinforcements just as the confrontation reached its peak. But instead of soldiers or weapons, he brought more animal trainers, veterinarians, and even some bonded wolf-human pairs from other stations. The message was clear: humans were not trying to control shadow wolves. They were trying to build a community with them. Void Fang found himself surrounded not by enemies, but by examples of everything he had thought was impossible: wolves. And humans working together, caring for each other, protecting each other from danger. The ancient Alpha had spent his life believing that his species was destined to be alone, but the proof of another way was all around him. The breaking point came when one of Void Fang's own followers, a young adult wolf named Swift Claw, approached Dr. Min-jun and projected a request for medical help. The wolf had an old injury that had never healed properly and was causing constant pain. Dr. Min-jun immediately began examining Swift Claw's injury while the wolf pack watched in amazement. Here was clear proof that humans would help any shadow wolf who needed it, regardless of whether they had been hostile. The medical treatment was given freely without demands for submission or payment, as Swift Claw pain decreased thanks to human medicine. Void Fang felt something inside himself begin to change. This was not weakness or corruption. This was kindness, something he had forgotten could exist in the universe. The ancient wolf had spent so long fighting against rejection that he had forgotten what acceptance might feel like. Hope approached Void Fang one more time and projected a simple question: why do you choose to be alone when you could choose to belong? The question hit Void Fang like a physical blow because he realized he had no good answer. Loneliness was not strength. It was just loneliness. The fear and aggression his pack used were not signs of power. They were signs of desperation and pain. Slowly, carefully, Void Fang lowered his massive head in a gesture of surrender. But it was not surrender to humans. It was surrender to the possibility that his species could finally find what they had been looking for. All along, Un-ji reached out and gently touched the ancient wolf-scarred muzzle. At that moment of contact, Void Fang experienced something he had thought was impossible. He felt truly accepted by another intelligent being. The sensation was so powerful that his psychic projections shifted from aggression to something like wonder. The confrontation ended not with violence, but with the largest group bonding ceremony in Shadow Wolf history. 23 aggressive wolves met human partners that day and began learning what it meant to be part of a mixed species pack. Void Fang chose to work with Dr. Min-jun, who specialized in helping traumatized animals. The ancient wolf had centuries of emotional damage to heal, but for the first time in his life he had someone willing to help him through the process. The news of the successful resolution spread across the galaxy within hours. The impossible had happened again. Humans had not just survived an attack by militant shadow wolves, they had converted the attackers into allies. The galaxy's most feared predator was becoming humanity's greatest friend. 6 months after the confrontation at Harmony Base, the galaxy was a completely different place. Trade routes that had been abandoned for centuries were now safely patrolled by human shadow wolf teams. Space stations that had been built like fortresses were being redesigned to welcome visitors. The age of hiding from apex predators was finally over. Ambassador Tae-ho stood before the Galactic Council once again, but this time he was not alone. Stormbringer lay beside his chair, calm and relaxed, in a room full of aliens who had once fled in terror at the mere mention of shadow wolves. Around the great chamber, other bonded pairs demonstrated the impossible partnership that had changed everything. Chancellor Vorthak crystal body sparkled as he addressed the assembly. 6 months ago, we gathered to plan evacuations and funerals. He said, today, we gather to witness the birth of a new era in galactic civilization. Humans have accomplished what we thought was impossible. They have turned our greatest nightmare into our strongest protectors. The demonstration that followed amazed even the most skeptical alien observers. Bonded pairs showed how Shadow Wolf's psychic abilities, combined with human technology and strategy, created security. Teams more effective than any military force. Swift Claw, now partnered with communications specialist Hye Jin, could detect threats across entire star systems using enhanced psychic senses. Hope, working with trainer Yoon Ji, had learned to use controlled fear projections to stop pirates and raiders without violence. The young wolf could project just enough psychic pressure to make criminals surrender without causing permanent mental damage. It was law enforcement that worked through understanding. Rather than brutality, Dr. Jin-A addressed the council, explaining how humans had succeeded where everyone else had failed. The key was recognizing that shadow wolves were not monsters. They were intelligent social creatures whose aggression came from loneliness and rejection. When offered genuine acceptance and partnership, they became loyal friends instead of deadly enemies. The transformation went far beyond simple cooperation. Shadow wolves began teaching humans about psychic communication, opening up new fields of science and technology. Humans shared concepts of agriculture, medicine, engineering, and art with wolf packs that had never had permanent homes before. Together, the two species established colonies and research stations in regions of space that had been too dangerous to explore. The shadow wolves' natural abilities allowed them to survive in environments that would kill most other creatures, while human technology provided tools and knowledge that made survival comfortable, instead of just possible. The partnership created new solutions to old galactic problems. Pirates and raiders found themselves facing opponents who could track them psychically across vast distances and coordinate attacks faster than any communication. System rescue operations in dangerous areas became routine when Shadow Wolf teams could locate survivors and bring help. But the greatest change was in how species throughout the galaxy viewed each other. The human-Shadow Wolf partnership proved that even the most unlikely beings could become friends if approached with understanding instead of fear. The example inspired other species to reconsider their own conflicts and prejudices. Dr. So Young established the Interspecies Understanding Institute, where beings from different worlds could learn communication techniques developed through human-wolf cooperation. The methods that had worked for taming apex predators were adapted to help resolve conflicts between trading partners, diplomatic disputes, and even ancient wars. President Yu Jin received reports from across human space showing unprecedented prosperity and safety. The partnership with shadow wolves had not just protected humanity, it had made them the most trusted mediators in the galaxy. Other species came to humans when they needed help resolving difficult problems. The success story attracted attention from unexpected sources. Deep space monitoring stations detected signals from regions that had been silent for decades. Species that had hidden from shadow wolves for generations began emerging from their hiding places, curious about the changes they were hearing about. However, the partnership also revealed new challenges. Long-range scouts reported detecting something moving in the dark spaces between galaxies. The signals suggested mechanical rather than biological origins, but showed the same systematic approach to destroying worlds that shadow wolves had once used. Dr. Min Jun, working with his bonded partner, Void Fang, now called Stormfriend, studied the incoming data. The mechanical signals showed patterns of consumption rather than hunting. These new entities seemed to devour entire planets, breaking them down into raw materials for unknown purposes. The Galactic Council faced their first major decision of the new era. Should they prepare for war against these devourers, or should they attempt the same approach that had worked with shadow wolves? The debate was intense, with many species arguing that mechanical beings could not be reasoned with the way biological ones could. Ambassador Tae Ho proposed a compromise that shocked the assembly. Once again, humanity would attempt first contact with the devourers using the same techniques that had worked with shadow wolves. If communication failed, they would retreat and help prepare conventional defenses. but they wanted to try understanding before resorting to violence. The volunteer crews for the first Devourer contact mission included some of the most experienced human-wolf pairs. Captain Minho and Stormbringer would lead the expedition along with Hope and Yoonji and several other bonded teams. They would approach the mechanical entities with curiosity instead of hostility. The contact mission prepared to launch children played in parks throughout human space. Human children and shadow wolf pups ran together in games that would have been unimaginable just a year before. The sight of natural enemies playing as friends had become the symbol of